Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to Tabletakes presented by Gen Con. It's me, Christian. How you doing? I'm here with Bonsai and Emma and Justin, right?
I think that sounds right.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Is that right?
that seems
Yeah,
right.
sure.
Look, new guy. We're glad you can make it. I usually write it down at the beginning, and I didn't today. I just
I respond to anything. It's
I had
fine.
to go off of memory this time. I think I did okay, all things considered.
This
Like,
guy. No,
Emotionally, it feels like you've been here forever.
it does, yeah. Like
I'm like an emotional support clown.
indeed,
Yeah.
we've got. Today you're here specifically for a topic, though, and I'm
Yes,
excited.
and I
to get
can't
to
wait for it.
This was actually the first topic that we ever decided to talk about on Tabletakes, and we have never gotten to it.
Every time I have been here to do it.
But today is the day. You
We're gonna
finally
do it.
get to see it, the thing that we've been talking about not on camera for the entire time that we've been working here.
See, now you really hyped it a lot, right? People are gonna have really high expectations.
It's like,
high.
and all of my notes are at home, and I wrote them 6 months ago.
yeah.
So let's see if I can remember any of it. But we got to start with the news because there is news in the gaming world, and we want to make sure that you get it. So we are going to start with Emma today telling us about the American Tabletop Awards.
Yeah, you may never have heard of that before.
I have not.
Because nobody has ever heard of that before.
Oh.
And it kind of just came out of nowhere. So American Tabletop Awards has just a group of people, committee of 10, who have recently announced their presence and already picked winners. So they have chosen their awards, and they have 4 different categories that they were selecting in. For early gamers, which is more family children games, Catch the Moon won the award for that. Casual games, The Quacks of Quedlinburg won for that. And
Is it about ducks or bad doctors?
that's the Bad Doctors. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait,
You're
duck
making
bad
potions.
duck?
No ducks.
Always duck bad doctors
Yeah.
if you can.
Oh, so they missed an opportunity to make.
It
feel
was
like-
originally in German, so it was like Quacksalber. So I don't think ducks quack in Germany. You know, in every country they
They quack.
animals make different noises.
Yeah.
That's true.
Like a chicken in France is like wha or something.
Is it samurai?
Yeah. So moving on, the Strategy Games Award went to Chronicles of Crime, and the Complex Games Award went to Root.
Well deserved.
Yes.
I love Root.
Very much so.
Yes.
So this is news.
Yes.
And the reason it is news is not just because it's a new award
Yeah.
and an award picked by a brand new academy who had just, instead of like having a big like, hey, we're doing this contest, they just said, hey, we did this.
Yeah. Mhm.
We love these games.
Yeah.
These are our winners for this year. And instead of people saying, oh, hey, great, maybe I'll check out these games, they say, where do you get off doing an award show without telling us?
How dare you like games, get together with other people who like games, choose your favorites, and then tell people about it.
And yeah,
Right now, I'm scratching out the notes that are like, well, we can't do that now. People are gonna hate that, you know.
oh, if we do our own like the Tabletakes awards.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
we should absolutely do the
We should do
Tabletakes
that.
award.
Yeah.
We should do it today.
But
We should do it later today.
But we've also announced it now, so I think people won't be
Yes.
quite as up in arms about it. So,
That's what we want. We want people to be mad.
so yeah, I want to hear where the internet gripe is coming from on this. Like, what's the deal, guys?
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, so other award shows, like you think about something like the Academy Awards, that is very different. That's a group of people who pick things that they like to get. No, it's exactly the same.
It's exactly the
it's the
same.
same.
It's
Yeah.
the exact same as every award show, and yet this particular one has made people on the internet angry.
Yeah.
I just think it's like.
And I say people on the internet, and
Yeah.
I don't mean like all of the people. I'm not talking
just
about people. I'm talking about
The
internet
screaming
people.
minority of people.
Mm-hmm.
that
It
just
is peak internet for like people to get mad about something they didn't even know existed yesterday.
Yeah.
You know
Right.
what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you go from 0 emotional investment to just like
like,
120% emotional investment.
Here's my
and, like,
Twitter rant, and
yeah.
here's why. You
Yeah.
suck for doing it.
And this is always also this committee of people, they obviously got together, they talked about these games, they nominated games, they put a lot of work into it, they gave something to the internet.
And it's not even like they're like outside the
And I
bounds
think-
of like what people would agree with.
And I
Like,
think there's an
complex game
argument
root,
to be
that's a
made
great
that the
game.
people who chose these awards are people in the industry who know about games.
Yeah.
Yep.
These are well-known industry veterans
Right.
who
People who play,
Yeah.
make, review, teach games all the time. These are absolutely industry professionals.
Yeah.
And yet they're being treated like they just made crap up.
Yeah. Well, the awards for board games are interesting because there aren't a lot of awards. There definitely aren't a lot of known awards. There's a lot of niche things, like Chicago Toy and Games Fair has their things.
Spiel the
different.
R's,
Yeah, Spiel the R's.
which is mostly like limited to German and European games for a lot of the time.
Yeah. And other than that, there's like maybe at a convention or something that there just aren't big awards like this. So people maybe say like, oh, it's presumptuous that you say like you're going to make the awards, you're going to make the American awards.
I think mostly that people don't realize that these people are actually like more in the industry. They want somebody with like, oh yeah, this person definitely made this game and they started this revolution of gaming. That's why they get to talk. But because the people that are chosen in this community are all like very public faces.
Yeah.
They're most known for their personalities online, and they're like, oh, they're just personality. Why do they get to tell me what to play, even though they obviously share a passion?
Because you don't do it just from being a personality. You do it by being somebody in the industry who happens to have a personality. We put you in front of the camera because of your knowledge and the fact that you don't look terrible on camera.
And like I personally know a lot of the people from this committee, and these are some of the most dedicated, most self-sacrificing people in the industry. These are people who go above and beyond to volunteer their time, to share their interests with people, don't always get paid a lot of money. So they're like, these are the people you go to. Is like, so what's the cool game? I mean, Bebo, for example, was one of the people on the committee. She wrote the book. She wrote a freaking book about this
That
stuff.
is the very first person I would ask if I had a question about a board game that I know nothing about. I would ask Brittany Bo first and foremost.
Yeah. So I'm very excited about these awards. I think everything's going to be fine. I think it's going to settle down. I think people are a little caught off guard by it, but I'm excited going forward. I want more awards. I want to win awards for my games, right?
Yeah.
So
Right.
I want there to be more opportunities.
I want to give awards for my opinions on games that people are
absolutely.
designing.
So yeah, that's that.
All right.
That's really all we have to say about the American.
So hey,
Tabletop
there's new
Awards.
awards that actually gave some awards to some fantastic games,
Yeah.
and some people are complaining about that because they need something to complain about.
Well, but you guys want to know things that are coming out that are actually like just surprising, not like full, it's just kind of testers. That just came out of nowhere, but everyone's really happy about it.
What? They're happy about it?
Yeah, Unearthed Arcana.
As
do you
Dungeons
wanna tell
and
us?
Dragons players, one of the most fun things that we've had available to us since 5th edition came out is the Unearthed Arcana from D&D Beyond, which allows us to playtest new variant rules, classes, races, you name it. Unearthed Arcana has been there since 5th edition dropped, giving us new options to play with, which I think is great. And a lot of those have gone on, the Artificer being one of their first ones. Went through a couple of different erratas during that Unearthed Arcana section, is now being released as a full class and published.
Nice. Yeah.
So these subclasses, these races, everything have a history of being put in the game proper. So I don't treat Unearthed Arcana so much like a house rule, but it's definitely a playtest feel. And you get a DM that allows that kind of stuff in the game and wants to test out everything D&D has to offer. Unearthed Arcana has been fantastic for this. In regards to that, this week they have released 2 new subclasses for your Dungeons and Dragons enjoyment. One of them for the Paladin, and the other for the Bard.
Hell yes.
Hell yes. A little Bard love is what we need in this
seem
place.
excited about this.
I only play bards when I play D&D, as my friends will attest. I pick, literally, if bard is an option, I am picking it.
Yeah.
You know? They're just so versatile. I said earlier, they're like the singing Swiss Army knife of any particular party.
What if Minstrel is available?
That's
You see, now in past editions of Dungeons and Dragons, the Bard gets crapped on.
yes.
This is
You know,
frequently.
I've
As just,
the first movie I was in famously made a joke about that by having the guy who played the Bard have like 50 different character sheets, and by the end of it, there's just a pile of dead bards at the end.
sad.
But that was always the stigma that kind of went along with them. Like
you
they're
had to
great to
hide
have
in the
along if you're trying
background.
to seduce a barmaid or talk to a king. But beyond that, you pretty much have to hide in the back and not get yourself murdered.
Yeah, and be like, hey, I'm gonna
5th
give
edition,
you courage.
from the very beginning, set about to change all that, making the Bard one of the most versatile classes available in the modern era of Dungeons and Dragons. What they've done with this one is they've given you more of a a very charismatic Bard is not an uncommon thing.
Yeah, right.
But this particular college of Bardic, of the College of Eloquence, everything you need to know about the class is right there in the name. It's the College of Eloquence. Everything they do is charisma-based. They can talk themselves out of almost any situation. They have a lot of really cool abilities.
That is my
Smooth
jam
talkers.
right there, right? Like, I want to be able to BS the most frightening, powerful thing that we're encountering and make him a friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I want to be able to, like, talk my way through problems.
And
you
on
know?
top of that, they
Yeah.
still have the versatility and utility of your everyday bard, which is one of the most versatile and useful classes in the game currently. So really leaning into that social aspect and having that face character get a little bit of love is nice. Usually people kind of have to pick the face character because they accidentally have the highest charisma in the party because they're the warlock.
Right, yeah.
You know, like, and the guy who made the
Me.
deal with the devil is probably not the guy you want to talk about
Or
the mayor
an
about
angel.
saving his
You
daughter.
can be a celestial warlock. I'm
You
just
can,
saying.
but I mean, there's way less damage if you do that. It's not as much fun. Play a cleric.
But I like what you're saying about being able to talk your way through problems, because one of the things that I've learned from playing more Dungeons and Dragons is often it's like the music plays in the background, right? Like, oh, this is the danger track. Like, we're gonna have a fight. It's like, well, why can't we just talk to the ant people? I mean, they're like swinging their mandibles.
And I mean, even from like a real life into the game thing, how many conflicts that arise in real life originally start as just like botched communication? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, if you can play a character who's really good at communication, and I am in no way biased because I'm a communications professional, anyways. Like, how awesome would
That's
that be?
good.
You
Yeah.
know?
As long as you're not biased.
No.
No, it's not no bias at all. But
I think in this case, bias is actually acceptable.
because
One of the cool parts about this class, my favorite aspect of this class is the ability to use your bardic inspiration outside of combat. Normally,
Yes.
that's totally just a combat thing.
Yeah.
With the College of Eloquence, what you can do is you can use that bardic inspiration outside of combat to give yourself advantage or your party advantage on negotiations.
Yep.
Which is if you're trying to get a better deal before you go save that princess from that dragon, then
I'm all about that.
Yeah, no,
I've also decided that I very badly need a T-shirt that says PhD at the College of Eloquence. Something similar.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
badly.
There you go. You gotta get it.
a doctor of bardic
Wizards, if you're
studies.
listening, please.
But yeah, so
Make it happen.
Yeah.
You'll have one pre-order
The
from
one
me.
thing that I
Doctor
really
of
like
Talk.
about this new Bard character is that you really don't need to be able to speak that language. You can talk to whatever.
Yeah.
And just as long as you got that emotional, I think it's called calm emotion spell. It's basically like you go up and you just
just
kinda
use
like-
your body.
You just use your body and then go, hello,
universal
I'm dead
language.
creature, please do not kill me.
Everyone put your swords away. I'm about to go do some interpretive dance for that crow over there.
Yeah,
okay?
pretty much. You gotta.
That's right. You got it. That's right.
How are we gonna get past these ogres guarding the door? Hold my beer.
Hold my beer.
Hand me my
Hey,
ribbon.
how you doing?
Oh,
The wink.
the wink.
Me want smash bones, but me not want smash bones
Listen,
anymore.
if I can make my if I can
Bard have winning smile.
if I can get through the Underdark by making out through it the whole way, you know, if that's what
What,
the
you're
problem
gonna
requires, then I'm all in.
Yeah,
you
no.
know?
If I
You're gonna
The
captain.
drow are notorious.
if I can
kissers.
second base my way through the Zobaranzan.
Yeah, you're gonna Captain
keep it
Kirk
PG.
your way through the dungeon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Captain.
Doesn't have
Wow.
lips.
Except for
I
the
kiss
Drider.
it.
The Drider, that's fatal.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's their intention, but I think you should play this.
But the
now.
toolbox is there,
Yeah.
right? Yes.
Another class that's gotten a lot of love this week as a new subclass is the Paladin, getting a much-needed makeover from the standard knight in shining armor trope that we have all seen with the Paladin. The Paladin, again, is one of those classes that's been completely revamped for 5th edition, so it's useful from first level all the way to 20th. The capstone ability is good. The laying on hands is still there. But it's really like a lot of people don't like to play the Paladin still because of that stigma, that lawful good, knight stigma. Like basically, I'm
must
here to
be
ruin everyone's fun when you want to do something
Religious
bad.
zealous.
Oh, it's so much fun playing that though, because everyone's like sneaking around and trying to like break into this thing, and you're like, I approach the front door and pound upon it, and they're like, shh.
No, we must come in at a noble cause. That's the only way. I do not
It is
like
impolite to enter someone's domicile without knocking first.
Arrows rain.
The Paladin gets a lot of love in this time with the sacred oath of heroism, which is so cool because we've got courage, we've got valor, we've got chivalry, we've got all the other stuff that covered. This, I thought, brought things down to earth a little bit more, made the Paladin somebody that we can all relate to. He's an everyman hero who just wants to like go out and help people.
Like a fireman.
Very much. He's
Like a fireman.
He's exactly like a fireman. You know, he comes from a humble background.
Or she.
Or she.
Right.
Yeah.
I was speaking as though I were the paladin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I want to play this paladin.
I want to play this paladin.
But yes, they, whoever they may be, get some really, really cool new abilities.
I like this thing here where it's like they can assume a living myth form at level 20, which allows
Yes.
them to auto hit and auto save once per round.
Nice.
As if they become that person that everyone hates because they're good at everything all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
And they become better looking.
Yeah.
It's literally right there.
Did your jaw just chisel itself?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you get that shine, you know, when you whack the creature
Yeah,
and you go,
and then
I
you
save
go-
you, citizen.
Gleam.
I think that's the best feature.
Yeah, so
Wouldn't you
this
not,
actually gives it a lot of opportunity to play just that classic peasant hero
Yes.
that's just like, wow, that guy is so cool. You could basically be Ferris Bueller in D&D.
Or like the Captain America.
Oh, very
You know what
much
I mean?
so.
That's
Just,
how-
yeah.
Oh, it's like with Beyonce's fan, you just have somebody with like somehow like always blowing your cape or something
Oh,
like
yeah.
that randomly. Like
The Bard, they play the
Yeah.
lute
The-
so
the
fast.
lute so
Yeah.
fast that it's like making your cape.
I mean, yeah, like the Bard is probably back there, you know, making the paladin look good.
Yeah.
Right, writing
Yeah.
down his exploits. Or
This
exploits.
this is the paladin that doesn't need the bard, in my opinion. Like
Oh.
this one, he's all about his
Except to learn to
charisma
write and
bonus.
read.
Yeah.
Okay, if we're talking about that classic peasant from rags to riches hero thing, do you think they're literate?
In 5th edition, they are.
Is that like a...
Because every class is literate in 5th edition.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, what? No.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But are they literate in
You don't
interpretive
get
dance?
you don't get to have the
Yeah, what
barbarian
if you
who
give
is
a dance
uneducated
off?
just for the sake of being uneducated.
But that's how I do my barbarian wizard.
And you're allowed to do that still. How do you do the wizard stuff without reading, since reading and
No,
writing
no,
is
no.
required
So
for the class?
What the barbarian wizard does, it does death touch, and he just punches you in the face. You just say, or they just say spells.
Yeah.
Like magic
Die.
missile, and they just throw their thing, and they just have very
Fire.
Sword!
High.
Oh, that worked just as well.
That's
So
yeah.
it's like the orcs in Warhammer.
So yes,
Manifesting, whatever.
if
they
you get a
think about.
chance and you're a Dungeons & Dragons player, check out Unearthed Arcana on the D&D Beyond site. They've got lots of stuff there for you to check out. These are two of the newest. They're going to be amazing. So, what do we got going? I heard there's some like super secret stuff happening over at Riot Games.
Riot Games,
like they've been on the down low trying to do some trademark action.
Wait, Riot Games makes video games.
That doesn't make any sense.
Not
Wow.
only that anymore.
No.
What?
No, they're going to be. So it's just been reported now that on August 13th, there's a conspiracy now. Conspiracy hat on. All right.
Oh,
August-
it's also orange. That helps.
It also is orange, yes. So August 13th and July 29th, Riot Games actually filed trademarks for two tabletop-related trademarks. So Riot Tabletop is one of the trademarks that they're also like just grabbing really quick, and Tellstones as well.
Which is, it appears to be like an online platform.
Yes.
Designed to sort of like do tabletop related things.
Yeah, tabletop.
Like a tabletop simulator of some sort?
So,
Or for organizing tournaments.
yes,
Ooh.
or organizing tournaments. So let me go ahead and go on the. So there, if you guys don't know Riot Games, they're most famous for League of Legends and Teamfight Tactics. Teamfight Tactics. But yes, they just basically have been filing.
excitement.
It's kind of surprising that they just did this. They did do one board game called Mechs vs. Minions. I
Yeah.
actually got to play it, a $75 board game that they only released once years ago. And everybody was like, oh my gosh, this is great. We love it. Can you give us more? And they're
You're
like,
like,
nah.
No.
No, sorry, we're busy.
Sorry, we're busy making video games. Sorry.
I don't know if you heard about Teamfight Tactics, but that's what we're doing.
But so pretty much people have a theory that, yeah, Teamfight Tactics, this is just theories, because they're grabbing these trademarks. So everybody's like, ooh, what's going to come out? What's going to come out? Is it going to be a League of Legends game? Is it going to be a
We
Teamfight
say
Tactics?
everybody's doing that, but it's really just us.
It's just us.
I'm actually really excited to see more video game developers use all of their design talent to create really fun physical social experiences.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Harebrained Schemes, they did Golem Arcana. That was kind of a step into this direction, obviously. And even going the other way too, when they were developing XCOM, the new one, the original one, the designers actually created a tabletop prototype of the system they wanted first to see if it worked, and then created the XCOM game. So like, there's a lot of overlap here that I think could result in some really cool stuff.
I mean,
Yeah,
they
and
kind of
then
had to
they
do that.
on
HBS
board
kind of had to do
games.
that with BattleTech too, because
Yeah.
it started
Yeah.
off
Yeah.
as a tabletop game.
So they already had that skeleton to go off
yeah.
of, and they made a fantastic game from it. So it's all
Yeah.
good.
It's kind of interesting from a financial perspective for the Riot things, because Teamfight Tactics, I mean, I don't know how much money they're making off it, but they're almost getting money out of me. Like, I'm going into there, I'm seeing these adorable little legends, like little puppies and little marshmallows bouncing around the screen. I'm just like holding my wallet into my pocket. I'm like, no, I can't.
But now you
do
can
it.
have physical figurines.
Too cute.
Can you imagine?
And
but,
then move them around.
but yes, keep in mind these
Okay,
are
I do
all
want
just speculation.
Yeah, we're right now. We're just making stuff up.
We're making things up. There's nothing. This is just the news is that they trademarked these names, these
But
two names.
It's also good to know that, like, obviously Mechs vs. Minions was successful enough for them that they decided they wanted to continue with this sort of like thing that they started in.
Yeah, I'm glad that
Yeah.
they are branching out, and I think it's awesome that video game companies and tabletop companies are becoming less and less separate from each
Yes.
other in so many places.
Yeah, I agree.
In so many places, because game design is game design is game
Exactly.
design.
Just sometimes you need 600 extra people to do all the coding.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
But yeah. But yes.
All
get
right,
excited.
so we got that.
This is my favorite story of the day. This next one.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
no, mine
it's the
too.
best
Mine too.
story.
This is. Yeah, I read about this on Google, and I was like,
In
yes.
lighthearted news, a truck carrying dice makes the largest unintentional dice roll ever. You heard that right.
Call
So,
Guinness, everybody. It happened.
a truck, and first of all, no one was hurt, so it's okay to kind of make light of this.
It
Everyone
made
was,
it saving throw
Yes, it made the saving throw.
Oh,
Absolutely.
by a lot.
by a lot.
So it sounds like the truck just took a turn. It was a rental truck. It took a turn too quickly, and I don't know how these dice were set up, or the doors burst open or something, but it spilled about 216,000 dice. And I look at the picture. I believe these are all D6s.
Across an
Yeah, all
interstate,
day.
not just
All
like
day
into a
interstate.
field. It was
Yes.
like a
In-
major, like
Highway.
American, like thoroughfare.
Yeah.
It was pre-tumbled.
Yeah.
From what I hear, it was a really good roll.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Just
Higher than
216,000
average.
sixes.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Wow,
not
what are
that
the
many
chances?
dice.
In
It's
that
like
case, they
Shadow
probably
running
didn't
off.
get rolled. They probably just got dropped in their package.
Yeah.
If they were all sixes.
No.
So,
I think Gen Con did a tweet about this.
Yeah, they
yeah,
did.
yeah, I rolled a perfect 740. They said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I thought was very, very clever. Good job, Gen Con. You
Yeah.
have
Yeah, they're
brains.
celebrating their unofficial world record. So these dice were bound for Trivium Studios, a Georgia-based tabletop design company. So potentially some financial loss here, but they are taking it in
Due
stride.
to loss of stock, that company's going out of business now.
I just want to point out that if they had been level 20 and assumed living myth status, they could have just auto hit without having to roll.
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah. They
Yeah,
just-
they wouldn't have even
had
needed to
to.
make that
Yeah.
roll.
They didn't
Yeah.
need to make that roll. Gosh darn.
I'm sure
it.
everyone watching right now is like, I'm so sick of these people.
I'm tired. 216,000 dice got rolled. I believe what you said. What did you say about
Oh
that?
yeah, it's
That's-
you know, it's like a typical Shadowrun game.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, if you had enough street Sammies,
Yeah.
you just go, oh yeah, there you go.
There you go. That's 2 attack rolls.
2 attack rules.
Yeah.
I rolled 216,000 dice and still managed to miss.
All right.
Yeah.
So we have one more optional headline.
And I'm excited. This is just because the BattleTech clan invasion is going to be hitting stores in April for the new game. It's obviously post Kickstarter. They had like one of the biggest tabletop Kickstarters kind of ever.
Yeah.
It was huge, millions, and those are going to be on store shelves in April. That's all.
Yeah.
That's
Yep,
everything.
That's it.
That is
That's all you
It.
need to know.
All the things you need to know about.
optional headlines over.
All right.
Now.
Here it comes, guys. We've been talking about topics, doing topics on this show for some time. We've gone through a couple of them. We've had people on the
Yep.
show specifically to cover some of said topics. You know, Hawk Robinson being a famous example of that. About talking about you know, gaming in prison and things like that,
Yeah.
using gaming as therapy. Today we are going to talk about ancient games, and I'm not talking about Parcheesi. I'm not talking about
Catan.
Yahtzee.
What? Not Monopoly.
not
Oh,
even-
gee,
Yes.
you owe me a soda.
Cool. You guys, make sure the soda gets paid up, otherwise I'm never going to hear the end of it.
No, just
Today we're going to be talking about ancient games, specifically board games. We have to start somewhere. It seems only appropriate that we start at the beginning of time.
That seems a little early.
Oh,
What?
okay.
Well, I mean, you know, there's kind of an order to these things. So you've got to have the people first, and they have to be able to design the game, and you have to have their knowledge of gathering materials to make the Anyways, I mean, it might just be a little early. That's all I'm
The
saying.
beginning of
time.
people
The
time.
beginning of people time. Yes.
So the first thing we have to establish is like, how long has gaming been around? Have games been around?
And the short answer to that is as long as there have been people
As long as there have been people
socializing.
Yeah, as long as people have been dealing with other people, we have had games. Games are how we learn to tie our shoes, how we learn to spell, how we learn, like, in modern America, games are a huge part of the rearing process.
How we learned to conquer 18th century Prussia during a time of great conflict on the European continent.
Yeah.
For example.
Yes.
So, where did games start? Well, first we have to differentiate between games and sports.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
they are different but the same in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
So, the difference between, I'm going to say that the difference between a game and a sport, we're just going to establish this rule from the very, very beginning.
Lay down the line.
That's right. Just so
Yeah.
we all know
I'm about to poke a
where
hole
our
right through
baseline
this,
is.
but go ahead.
Okay, so speaking in strictly caveman terms.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. If you take sticks,
Yes.
a bunch of sticks that you have gathered,
Yes.
and you stack them in a particular way, right? And then the other person adds to that, that is a game.
Yes.
Now, if you sharpen that stick and put it in the other person, and they try and stop you, that's a sport.
Sounds more like murder,
That sounds
but
That's-
okay.
That's where we are drawing the line. It's competition, but not physical competition.
Okay, so it has to be like if you have to sweat a lot, that is.
No. I would
No?
actually say I think you're more onto it in terms of like what the ultimate goal is. I think for a game, the ultimate goal is enjoyment, right?
Because well,
And for a sport, the ultimate goal is triumph or
Domination.
or you measuring your relative skill at something over someone else's.
I think
I play
I think
liquor,
that they're
even.
both the same in that respect.
Yes.
I think this is just taking the physical act of something where it's competitive physically with the other person. You are competing with them either through strength or skill or, something physical. And then a game is something that you do by either, by just doing very small movements and using mostly your brain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you
But the
think about
purpose
it,
the purpose is to have fun.
The purpose is
Yeah.
absolutely to have fun.
yeah. These sport is a more natural evolution because if you read about history and ancient history and the ways that people acted, sports fed directly into things people were doing for survival.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
When people were racing, it's like, oh, we race, and then people get better at racing, and then they can hunt down prey better.
But
we
a
throw
game's
javelins.
origin, as opposed to a sports origin,
Yeah.
falls more under like these sports were like, I'm doing this because it helps with my survival.
Yeah.
With games, then we're getting into more of the metaphysical things.
Yeah.
Most games started off as gambling or
Yes.
fortune telling or even religious ritual,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
You're playing this game to show how what reincarnation works, for example, or
Yeah.
you're playing this game to venerate the god that you are trying to make your crops grow with.
Or as sort of like a mental exercise to like represent an abstraction of sort of a thought problem someone had, right? Like
Yeah.
how do I simulate this situation?
Simulation. Yeah. Another interesting thing is chance, surprise, and randomness. Like that was a pretty interesting discovery because you think about the distinction between humans and other animal species. Animals are surprised by something, and sometimes go out and seek surprise. Like young animals like playing and pouncing and whatever. But for humans, like focusing on this. Generating chance experiences. So the early knuckle bones, dice,
Yes,
like they had
knuckle bones.
intentionally making a thing that will generate a random outcome, generating that and doing things based on how the outcome, like complete randomness.
So let's start with dice then.
Yeah,
Yes.
I was just gonna say,
Like,
speaking
that's-
of dice,
Dice are such a
Dice.
huge part of and integral to our gaming experience nowadays.
Am
How
I-
long have dice been around?
I mean, a long ass time.
Yeah,
but
sure.
like in terms of like dice, is it just me at this table, or does anyone else have like this weird like primal kind of like attachment to dice? Like when you see dice, it like
I
excites
have.
you, or like
You have not
as-
seen my house. I have a lot of
we have
dice.
a lot
As
of
gamers, I
dice.
don't think we can say no to that
But-
and be honest.
Yeah.
But that's nothing new, right? Like that's
Yeah.
absolutely not new. I think one of the things that struck me the most was I was in Germany a couple of years ago, and I was visiting some Roman sites, and I went to a couple of museums, and there were in these museums there were exhibits with Roman game pieces, and of those pieces there were dice, Roman-made dice that were like 2,000 years old, 1,500 years old, whatever. And it is wild to me how dice have not changed in that time at all. It's like the guy who created dice, or the person who created dice, was like
Shoulda got a patent.
nailed it. You know what I mean? And that's just the way they are.
right the
but, like,
first time, people.
These Roman dice had like the exact same pit patterns that we have today. There was a Roman D20, like a D20 polyhedron there, and I was like, wow,
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
amazing.
I
You know?
think they also found some in Egypt as well.
Yes.
Yes.
And we will get to Egypt
Oh, sorry.
because Egypt, in a lot of ways, is the cradle of modern gaming. You know.
Yeah.
But
Why?
Quick sidebar for that, it reminds me of the first time that I kind of stumbled into dice. Like someone gave me my first dice. You know, that was I'd had dice in games, obviously, but this was like a separate dice as my own thing. And I got this, and I was like, oh, you know, it does. There's something about this, about the artifact, about the power of it, right? Like having the power to randomize and generate these
There was
numbers.
a reason that these were used in religious ceremonies.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, that random chance gives the illusion of, or, you know, maybe the actual divine intervention of an otherworldly being. Who am I to say? I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just something so like inherently like part of the human condition to love like physical random chance objects for whatever reason.
Yeah, and to attribute
Yeah.
potential
Meaning and
divine.
And it's also the
consequence.
sound that dice make is also very
Also
relaxing
that,
Yeah.
as well. But I think it's also because it's I think it goes back to like the D6. I think is the most basic dice that you can ever have. And there's a reason why they call it knuckle bones is because they use the knuckles of sheep.
Yeah.
Because sheep bones have like 6 facing different sizes. And that could just be like you ate the sheep. You feel relaxed and you're just like, oh hey, this is cool. Look at look
Yeah.
at
Well, the interesting
Who's
thing,
doing the dishes?
who's doing the dishes.
The interesting thing about human psychology is like we know logically that it's random, right?
Yes.
We know that a balanced dice, it's perfectly like there is no.
But this
well,
one's
depending
my
on what
favorite.
Your beliefs, that you have no control, but we do attribute. Like when you roll well, you feel like you have done something, right? Or you feel like there is some power. It's easy to attribute outside forces upon that.
I like to think of it kind of like a little miniature Christmas every time you roll dice, especially when it comes to games and the way that
Yeah.
dice are applied to games. It's like there is a mechanic and there's an inherent sort of like, oh, it's Christmas morning, I'm going to open this box and see what's in it. Anytime a game calls for some sort of randomness and we use dice to express that random outcome, you know, that's how it feels to me. It's like,
Yeah.
what
Wonder,
horrible fate is going to
discovery.
befall me as I throw these?
Yeah, we use
Always, every time.
kind
I
of
thought it was
Christmas
random.
presents
The fact
when
that
you
we
get
use that we use something that was used for gambling and religion for storytelling now makes me
Yes.
very,
Yeah.
very happy.
Yeah.
So Egypt, was saying, is
Yes.
important. Cradle of modern gaming is what I specifically said, especially tabletop gaming. Why?
Oh, tell us. I know.
Because of tables.
tables.
Yep.
Tables. Ancient Egypt, guys. Tables were used to put these games on and play the games on. And that's pretty much it.
That's a really important step. To
What,
get
do,
to
you,
the-
what do you use
that I
your
had
table
never
for
thought
at
of.
home?
Mostly games.
Yeah, games.
Eating and storage.
See,
Storage.
most non-gamers say eating.
Yeah.
But we didn't
Mail.
Yes, but we as humanity didn't use tables for eating
Oh,
until
yeah.
hundreds of years after we started playing games on those tables.
Oh, absolutely. And Romans, they didn't use tables pretty much ever when they ate. They laid and reclined and ate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And
Yeah, the
for
Greek-
ancient people, like having platters.
The
and you
Greeks
sit on a
started
rock.
eating off of tables. The soldiers would pull them out from underneath their bunks because they were really, really short tables and they'd eat off of them before bed or whatever. That's when we started eating off of tables. We were playing games on tables 600 years before that.
Now you know. That's a
Yeah.
fun fact.
So I don't want
you
anyone
go.
making fun of me when they come over and they see my table covered in games and tell me
And a
like,
hamburger
how do
on
you
his
eat
lap.
dinner, you know?
Yeah.
I eat dinner while playing games, clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody's got to.
That's right.
As a civilized person.
Do we want to talk about some of the actual ancient games?
absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get into next. This was just this was the primer. Like, hey,
Yeah.
here's where everything comes from. Now let's talk about some of these ancient games.
Do you have anything particular you'd like to bring up?
Well, if we're gonna start, like, I have some interesting ones from like sort of like the Roman and classical era going into like the medieval era. But like, if there's anything earlier than that, maybe we should start there.
yeah, we've got actually a few that are
Yeah, I believe
that are even older.
Shatranj, a chess precursor spread across India, China, and Europe. I believe that was pre the Greek and Roman time.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
first
I
iteration
mean,
of
I think
that.
the famous
Yes.
thing about like sort of like the chess precursors and how chess kind of materialized is obviously like in India there were no knights, right? So those were elephants at one point,
Yeah.
you
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
and the rooks were not castles; they were something different. There's a lot of the history of chess is actually really interesting in terms of like what it was trying to model. Obviously, like especially in the ancient world, warfare was one of the prime activities of states and monarchs and stuff like that. And so like someone had this idea of like, how do we represent conflict between things, and how do we strategize, like how can we express strategy in a way that is also like useful to those kinds of efforts. And so there's just a ton of interesting stuff about chess in particular that I find fascinating.
Well, it's interesting about the mental, logical, strategical part of warfare, because you think about warfare as like, oh, you just like throw troops against each other, but there was, especially in ancient times, there was very complex situations and battles, and some of the most famous minds at the time were war minds, were strategic people who plotted out like the art of war, right? We had a lot of writings at the time about thinking, like war is a thinking activity.
And the other thing too is like when we get to some of these more these other ancient games, they're definitely more abstract. They don't really have a sense of place other than the concept of playing them. But when you think about chess, that was sort of like one of the early attempts to like apply a sort of grounded, realistic geography to what's going on in the game.
And we don't technically count chess as an ancient game because it's
exactly.
been modernized from other ancient games.
Yes.
I'm talking about games like the Royal Game of Senate, Mancala.
Mancala. I love names.
These games that all come from different continents and have very, very different play styles.
But they also have some games like Mehen, where they have boards, they have pieces. They don't know what the rules for those were. But they have like the Mehen board is really cool because it's a circular spiral snake, and they really want. They're like, how there's like people who do research on it. It's like, oh, I really want to know how we played this thing. We don't have enough evidence to demonstrate that.
So we've got Senate, which is a 3,500-year-old game.
Yes.
Right. You've got the Royal Game of which is a 4,500-year-old game.
Yeah.
Which nobody really knows how to play.
No.
Yeah.
Like we've found the boards, we've found the pieces. We've got different stories on how the game was actually played and what the real idea behind it was. We've had documentaries on that exact same thing, but they're all speculation.
And I think this is a great point for all game designers out there. Make sure your rule book is timeless, inscribed in stone, put in a capsule.
In the box. Make sure it's with the game.
If you want, exactly. If you want people 4,500 years from now playing your creation, you better make that weatherproof and time-proof.
Otherwise your Kickstarter will fail.
Just make everything plastic and never
I want
dies.
to do that now. Like, I do a time capsule and like chisel my game in stone.
Yeah.
I think
that
one
will be
of the
event.
most ancient games that has its full set of rules that's still intact is Go from China.
Yeah.
And it's changed almost none since it showed up.
Since it showed up.
The ultimate elegant design, right? Simple concept, very few rules, and it's still around.
And a lot of depth to it.
Yeah.
All right. How about the Greek and Roman games?
Yeah, so obviously there's a bunch of Greek and Roman stuff. Actually, there was at that museum I was talking about, they had an exhibit of one of the Roman games, and like the rules were kind of nebulous, but essentially it involved. They were big fans in Rome of like these boards that had like these designs on them, like these channels, and moving pieces to like these different intersections of lines and stuff like that. There's a game called Calculi, which is also known as Roman checkers, but that bears a strong resemblance to things like Go or even Connect 4. So the object of this game was like, you had these stones and you had a grid, and you were trying to put 5 of your color stones in a row, right? It's very similar to like something like Connect 4, but there were rules about how you could place your stones. And so, for example, you were not allowed to make like a T shape with your stones because then it was too easy to win, right?
Yeah.
And so there's like these really interesting kind of like nuances to the way they were doing this. But in general, like the Romans, they really enjoyed games. They enjoyed dice, but they also enjoyed games that were a lot about like positioning, moving pieces, trying to sort of like outmaneuver your opponent. Very like abstract. What we would consider today as abstract games. They're big fans of that.
So the history of game design is game designers making it harder for you to win the game. That has been going on for a long time. Game designers are jerks.
Well, if the players weren't trying to shortcut and make things easier for themselves, designers wouldn't have to do that.
Yeah, there was another cool Roman game, checkers-like game, Petia, I believe, something along those lines, that was like checkers, but you would stack the things on top instead of jumping over pieces. And apparently Aristotle and other people used parables. Like, games were not only the physical things that people were playing, but people were talking about them. That's how we know that these existed, because they're mentioned.
Or those games were being used to illustrate philosophical points.
Yes, exactly.
Philosophical points,
One other thing I want to bring up is graffiti. So I was digging into this a little bit because we have found carved into stone, like in platforms or on walls, playboards. So you would have people just scratching in and playing a game of basically.
I used to steal my dad's playboards all the time.
Yeah. Well, you would have like tic-tac-toe or something, like an equivalent of tic-tac-toe carved into the walls. And I did a little bit of research about this. Apparently, graffiti wasn't bad back in the day because there was no paper.
Yeah.
There was no other way to communicate.
There was also no anti-graffiti laws.
Right. Yeah, that's like you're like, oh, why are you playing on the wall? Why don't you just like write it down somewhere? That's all they had to play these games.
Yeah, that's all you can do.
There's a this topic is interesting to anyone. There's a really awesome video. There's a YouTube channel who does a lot of really awesome history stuff. His name is Invicta. He does a lot of really cool, like, what was life like? What in history? What was this like? But he did a video a couple months ago called. It was essentially this topic, the history of games, and he talks about how games evolved through history and like where they went, and even beyond the ancient period, how sort of like modern war games got started, and like why people were sort of chasing more and more complex simulations of real life things. Highly recommend you check it out. I believe we can post a link in the chat for that.
Nice.
Definitely recommend that you watch it. It's like 9 minutes, something like that. Really cool if you want to like sort of get a history of games and stuff like that. There's also like this topic, it could go beyond ancient as well. I mean, you know, one of the more famous sort of like modern game design things is the author H.G. Wells, the guy who wrote Invisible Man and Island of Dr. Moreau, War of the Worlds.
Time Machine.
Time Machine.
Yeah.
He invented in
Hot tub time machine.
he invented in the early 19-teens a miniatures wargaming rule set. So like things we think about today, Warhammer, you know, Hordes, War Machine, that kind of stuff, kind of started with him. And he had this really detailed, exhaustive rule set and for sort of conflict, military conflicts set in real life. And what I find interesting about it was that instead of having sort of like dice to resolve combat, they actually had like spring-loaded artillery pieces that you have to like crossbows and catapult style, like aim and fire and stuff
Why
like that.
don't we have that? Should be brought back.
Crossbows and catapults?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
For war games?
For war
Yeah.
games, I need.
Lego
But
has some
actual shooting
very
ones.
good devices for that. So you can
Legos
combine
are.
like Lego.
I don't remember.
and-
Speaking of, there's a Lego Minis rule set called what's it called? It's called I can't remember the name of it. It was at PAX several years ago.
Oh, cool.
And it's basically it's got all of the rules for like having sort of like a skirmish scale minis game, but you build all of your models out of Legos.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like in this like sci-fi setting where you have like mechs and stuff like that. There's a whole community of people dedicated to like designs for like mechs and stuff. It's
awesome.
very cool.
That's
I
gonna
would play
be
that game.
It's
our
actually really
ancient
good.
Game
It
that
in-
is going to be
it involves-
known from millions.
But we're
years.
talking about
Ancient games.
Yeah,
know,
yeah. I
yeah.
did
So
want
the
to-
question that I have, because I get this topic, it's fine. And this is not going to be popular. I'm just going to say this now.
Oh,
So here we go. A little bit of shade on the ancient games. So ancient games, we don't know how to play a lot of them anymore. They still exist because people like novelty. But other games have come from these games,
Yes.
which
yeah.
makes those games important.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? Is it still worth it to play them?
the
old
actual
ones?
ancient
The
ones.
old ancient games. Is it worth it to learn and play these games?
Like with a lot of old games, some of them have not aged well. I think people have nostalgia for things that were thousands of years ago. Nostalgia is not the right word.
No.
But people have interest, curiosity, novelty. You know, they see these things, they're like, oh, that's so cool. I want to play a game from 5,000 years ago. It's like, well, game design has evolved a lot. There's a lot of modern day game design principles. And back then, this is all they had.
Yes.
Right? Like you would if you had one game, imagine your collection. If you could have one game from there, you would like that game because you have nothing else. But I think they're bringing back a lot of these games because they're Kickstarters for the game of and a lot of them are not super successful because people just they're fixated right on these games, like, oh, we're gonna bring this back, do like the ancients do. It's like when people do like, oh, we're gonna like live like the cave people, you
Right.
know. It's
Yeah.
like, well, they didn't have dentistry back
Yeah,
then.
and they died at 30 from like dysentery
Right,
and cholera.
yeah.
You know what
Right.
I mean?
Yeah.
So I would say, to answer your question, I would say that when I played the Roman game at this museum, I would say that it was definitely very interesting from a historical standpoint, but it was absolutely not fun.
Yeah.
So I think it's like, if you have interest in the history and the curiosity of what was going on and like what you can maybe learn about the culture through doing it, but like I wouldn't rush out to immediately own a copy of, you know, Shatranj or.
And right. So here's my point. I have a friend.
Really?
Who
That's surprising.
I only have the one.
oh,
I only have the one
the
friend.
one friend.
And the friend is very interested in these ancient type board games.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so has purchased several of them over the years. And then
Wants you to play.
makes me play them.
All right.
And they're bad.
Yeah.
Yes.
They're bad games. They don't have the complexity or the depth that any modern game has. And when I say modern, I mean from Rome on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay?
Sure.
I think I find them tedious. They're not. They're not fun.
Yeah.
They take a long time to play.
Usually very
Yeah.
deterministic.
Yeah.
Yes.
The rules are usually
like you could tell that they skipped something.
Yeah.
Figure it
like,
out, house rule it.
yeah.
I think that's a testament. Like that point, though, I think is if you're going to learn one thing from looking at ancient games, I think is as game design has evolved, it has been a direct result of society getting more complex. And so you can see an expression of society's sort of like complexities and needs through the way that the games were designed, right?
Yeah, so I feel that game design, absolutely being informed by these ancient games, is a perfect example of what not to do when making a game, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like in terms of that, but also I would say honestly
I don't know about that.
I'm gonna go ahead and throw a wrench in your whole
No,
idea.
do it. That's
I'm-
why
this is
I
where
said it.
A lot of these ancient games are from your modern standpoint. You have a lot of information. You got you got exposed to a lot of different other games, so you can have that comparative. I think that maybe ancient games are good for like kids. Like I grew up playing Mancala.
Yeah.
But Mancala's a fun game.
Yeah, but I mean
Like it's
it-
still fun.
it gives them a little bit of taste of, hey, this is how a game is. Like this is for mostly those games that are pre-Rome are made for people with not a lot of complex thinking.
Yeah.
It's mostly just a moving process. And if you can just like have that like movement and understand like this is the basics, this is how this works.
Yeah, but
And when Sheep Knuckles the only game in town,
Yeah.
that's the only game in town. There
Sheep
is no-
Knuckles is just playing dice. Playing dice is fun. I'm talking about like a stone circular board with a picture of a bird on it and some lines and a couple of dots here and there.
It sounds to me like you need to adjust your expectations.
No, what I'm saying is,
But
like
yeah,
no,
like you-
Mancala I argue is a fun game. Like
Yes.
anybody can play it. There is a strategy to it. Yes, there are only 2 strategies to it, but there are 2 strategies to it, and it's easy to play. It's fun to pick up. It's fun to move the little pieces around, and you get a sense of accomplishment when you win. With a lot of these ancient games,
Yeah.
and I can't count that one because it is a fun game, you don't get any of that. You just are like, I think I'm supposed to do this, and now I have one of these, maybe.
It's like playing a capital K Kickstarter board game without the rules. You just get all the components.
But the problem is with those capital K Kickstarter games is that those components are awesome.
Well, yeah.
It's
like,
not
you
a
know,
piece
got
of
the-
clay
You're like,
with
I have a
carving in it.
200-person orc army. I don't care what the rules are. I can have
It's like,
fun with that.
this is just a piece of clay with an X drawn into it.
Yeah. Well, I think the moral of the story is just because something is old doesn't mean it's good.
Yeah.
Just
But
because it's
on
lasting.
But on the other hand, just because
Mancala.
something is old and not
Go.
good doesn't mean there are good parts to it, right?
Yeah.
I think we
Absolutely.
can attribute things like the Duke, which is a great game, to things like chess. I think we can attribute
Yeah.
a lot of the Rondel games, like Trajan, for example, as one, to Mancala, right? Like there
Yeah.
are very clearly kernels of goodness there. Otherwise, those games wouldn't have existed and been popular, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
And to understand the context too, like the time
Yeah.
in which the game was played. Like people had a lot more time. Like they would be in the winter and they wouldn't have anything that they were doing. And they
yeah.
were probably like the
They were trying not to starve and die.
right. Or it was probably the aristocracy was playing this a lot of
Yes.
the times.
Yeah.
Or you were going to combat. You were like waiting for your battle to start,
Yeah.
right? And you were just sitting around thinking about not dying. Like there was a very different context in
Yeah.
which these games were played.
So
Throwing dice, man. It's,
Yeah.
I mean,
it's an
just
old
like
soldier
you were
pastime.
saying, from a designer's point, it is good to look at all these past games and their like cultural significance and be like, okay, I don't want to do that because that just doesn't work. You know, it's been tried and tested. That's why these games don't last. That's why you get games like Go, you get games like Mancala that actually their rule sets have like basically lasts the age of time. Like if you can make a game and design a game just judging by what has lived, what has died, you know.
Also important
Then
to
you could make a better version of that game today by using modern game
Yeah.
design
Yeah.
techniques.
Like-
It's important to note for something like Mancala, there's like hundreds of different play sets for
Yes,
that too.
there
Like there's the
is.
form factor, what we know as Mancala, but in regions
circle.
across the world, it's evolved in different ways.
and
which is
I mean,
really
that's
cool.
the thing, right? Like nothing.
In
none of
some
this-
countries, they just dig several holes in the dirt and drop rocks in
Yeah,
each one.
literally, yeah.
Well, I think that's the important part here is that we're talking about games and game systems that were popularized over time, but they weren't static all that time, especially
Yes.
when you're
No.
talking on 1,000-year timescales, right? I mean, even today, you as a designer probably appreciate this. You can look at someone else's design and be like, hey, I can do something really cool with that they maybe haven't thought of.
Yeah.
And that was going on all the time. That's why, the precursor to chess turned into chess and all that stuff.
I just feel like your playtest phase should last less than 2,500 years.
I don't know. Things went slower in the past.
Like
just
there's
say
a
that.
very ancient game that was in India that you probably recognize now, Snakes and Ladders. Before, that's when I said when religion, it was mostly like a reincarnation path when it's originally played, Snakes and Ladders. I don't remember what the original name title was. But the whole idea is that you would do good deeds and go up in terms of karmic scale.
Yep.
And then you would do bad things and go back down on terms of like layer of where you get reincarnated. So that was a teaching.
Okay, Raj,
And
you
the
want to know why
game can
nobody's
just-
allowed to talk to you or look at you? This game will show you why you are worth less than other people. It's like, I don't know if I want to teach my kids the caste system. It's fucking terrible.
Yeah, but that's snakes and ladders.
All right, so
Yeah.
do we want to? I think we did pretty well with that topic.
I think we touched on
Yeah.
it.
Not to say that we won't come back to it because there's a lot of stuff.
we need to come back and talk about less than ancient games. Talk about old games
Old
and
games,
where
yeah.
our
It'd be
modern
cool
games
to
come
actually
from.
have some. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's do war games next time. What do you say?
Yeah.
War games.
That means I have to come back.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I've been roped into that one.
Yeah. No, I just did that.
I mean, you don't
just
have
roped
to
you
if you don't want to hang out
specifically.
with us.
I guess.
He has accepted. It's happening now.
No take backsies.
All right.
right.
So now we move on. We're
Yes.
done with that. That's going to be that's our little
Quick take.
quick take
take.
on
History
the
of
history of
games.
ancient games.
Yeah.
I hope that it was informative or at least entertaining for you. If not, don't watch it on the VOD.
Where are we going next?
Bundles.
Bundles.
Bundles. Bundle of Holding has an old school revival set out today that's going to be benefiting the Ocean Conservancy charity.
That's fantastic.
What it is
OSR is something.
it's OSR with the old school revival. These
Yeah.
are very, very basic, one-shot, easy-to-play dungeons that'll get you in the spirit of old first edition Dungeons and Dragons. It's 7 different titles that all have varying themes on them. Fever Swamp, Undead Leviathan, Blue Home, Journeyman Rules, Dyson's logos, and the commercial map pack.
Yeah.
In case
You'll
you need
figure
more
it out.
commercial maps, look,
Yeah.
for $12.95 you get maps in the deal. You might as well just buy it because maps are not easy to come by all the time.
And it's a good cause.
Take the darn maps,
Yeah.
save the oceans.
Yes.
Then, of course, the Savage Worlds Battlefield, which is several Savage Worlds related products using the Savage Worlds system. I'm assuming old deluxe edition because Adventure Edition is just coming out now.
Yep.
But you've got Dinosaur
Dinosaurs,
Protocol.
yeah.
Dinosaur Protocol is
Yeah.
exactly what it sounds like. Gaia, which is obviously a secret
The
organization.
offices.
Yeah.
Space
Done.
stuff, maybe.
Don't talk about it.
a setting
Agents.
called Gaslight,
Oh.
which I'm assuming is just tricking other
many-
people into thinking that they're crazy.
Yeah.
There's 3 red dots. Sorry.
Yeah.
And Sherwood, which is of course playing Robin Hood with Savage Worlds.
So Robin.
Which is, of course, the torment of the aristocracy and holding the people down.
Yeah, man, fight the oppression.
Yep.
Rob from the rich, steal, give to the poor.
Poor.
Yep.
All
I thought you
that.
were about to be like, rob from the rich, steal for the poor, keep it all for yourself.
Keep it all for
That's where I thought that
yourself.
was going.
Retire to Fiji,
And for who
drink
this
boat
is,
drinks for the rest of your life.
for who this is benefiting, designer in need, the Battlefield press owner Jonathan Thompson. Unfortunately, his family suffered a house fire.
They were on their way back
And
from Gen
so-
Con, and
yeah,
their house
yeah.
got robbed and
And then
set
set
ablaze.
ablaze.
Yeah.
That is so messed up.
Kind of metal, but also, yeah.
Yeah, man, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
for him, like as a person in the gaming industry, like
Yeah.
he waits all year to go to this convention. Hopefully, he sells plenty of stuff while he's there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he finds out on the way home that his house has not only been robbed, but the guy set the house on fire after he robbed it.
Yeah.
Seems unnecessary.
It does.
It
Like,
is
just
unnecessary.
why did
What
you
a dick move.
Yeah. Like, why just set it on fire? Like, they just stole stuff. At least that would have been, at least they had the house. But no, this one's like, ha 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 ha.
So it is nice though that for this bundle they are adding a charity to it to help him recover.
Yeah, and,
Yeah.
and the Dinosaur Protocol is actually completely compatible with the Adventure Edition of Savage Worlds, the brand new one. So if you
Nice.
just got that, here's some more flavor you can get to add to that. Plus, it's pretty compatible with all the old system as well because it's such a great system.
Yeah.
Super easy. Yeah, and so help this guy. You know, he's one of us.
Yeah.
And
All right.
it's cheap. You know, $8.
Yeah.
You can help get this guy's house back. He's going to be in a hotel for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
With his
Wow.
family, and that's not a good time. Trust me, I've done it.
No, that's just all of his game designs as well, all burned up. all
Yeah.
his
Yeah, not to
notes.
mention everything he's collected over the years.
Yeah.
You know, like
irreplaceable, really.
Yeah,
it's completely irreplaceable. You
Because
know,
it's his own games that he's designed for him. Maybe.
like here's the picture I
Yeah.
took with Gary Gygax in 1994. I did a selfie even though they didn't have selfies then.
Your camera.
But they
you
had
could-
cameras.
Yeah,
So-
you could.
I
You
don't
could
know,
Polaroid.
man.
Could
I'm pretty
you?
sure we didn't.
Oh no, there is an old recorded. The first ever recorded selfie was an accidental selfie. It was a guy setting up his old
Oh, from, like, the
camera.
1800s
Yeah, from the
and-
1800s, and it
yeah.
just like was a selfie, and it
You see-
actually is very.
You see
like,
him holding the flash pot still.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also it took like 35 minutes for the thing to expose, so he was clearly there working
First
on it for a
accidental
while.
No, but
selfie.
it looks very like hipster modern photo because he's like looking like he's adjusting something and his hair is like messy and it's got that like weird.
Like, how did he hold that pose for
after-
25 minutes while the picture? It's like, man, that is
First
some
hipster.
dedication.
This is a
All right,
dedication.
let's speed through these Kickstarters.
Oh, Kickstarter!
Yeah,
run
Kickstarter.
through.
Who wants to be the Kickstarter queen today?
All the Kickstarter.
We can
Come on.
collectively be a queen.
Oh, we can all
I'll
be queens.
Queen
Yeah.
committee, Kickstarter
Oh,
committee.
a queen committee. I'm in.
Yeah, we're the queen.
I'm gonna go make tea.
Yeah.
No, no
I want
tea.
No tea.
No tea.
All right, so we're gonna go fast. I'm gonna go ahead and start this off with the Kickstarter. We got 3 hours left for Yeto. You like Yeto? It's a deluxe thing, so it comes in a nicer box.
Isn't
It's a
that a
big-
Coldplay song?
What?
There.
Yeto.
Yeto.
Yeto. So yeah, if you guys
I'm
just
never
like,
coming back.
but yeah, if you like Yeto and you want to get a nicer pieces, more meeples, a nicer box, a bigger box with more stuff.
Yeah.
And tokens.
that
buy
what
that.
And it's
everybody
a different
wants?
color.
It's
yeah.
different. It's a different color. It's just Yeto. It's
fancy.
but bigger.
Yeah.
Bigger.
If you like it, but you want it fancy, you can get it for
3
3
hours
more
left.
hours.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boom.
Next up, Animalchemist.
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 Yeah,
there
it's,
you
much,
go. That's
it's
how-
easier to sing it than
Yeah,
to say
it's-
it.
it
Which is
is,
Bonsai's
yeah.
discovery.
Actually, would you
All
mind?
credit.
Would you mind singing the whole story?
There. Animalchemists
10 hours
are
left.
animal alchemists, and you make some spells and mix some potions together.
Now, these aren't just animals; these are anthropomorphic animals,
Yeah.
Yes.
which means that they are far creepier than regular
Yes,
animals.
this is not the cutest Kickstarter board game. I went into it thinking that it could be, but the art is great, but it's not. I wouldn't necessarily say it's adorable.
It's still pretty
Yeah.
all right. Yeah.
It's
As it involves anthropomorphic animals, and I have not looked at the Kickstarter. Are the
How
are
uncanny valleys.
Yeah, are the animals difficult to look at because
No,
they
they're
are
cartoony.
sexualized in some way?
No.
Because
No,
that
that's-
really bothers me. I know that I'm not very open-minded, but
So
like,
you're not
that
a furry, is
freaks
what you're
me out.
saying.
Yeah, it does. It does.
By the way, great but not adorable is usually the reviews I get on my dates.
Why are you going on so many dates?
I,
Great, but not
It's a great
adorable.
question.
Aw. Would you rather be adorable but not great?
I don't have an answer to that question actually. I have fallen into the classical trap of self-deprecation at the expense of actual deprecation.
All right, this one has 10 hours left, so
But only
check it out.
slightly less well-known is this.
All right, so the next
Moving
one
on.
is speaking of ancient games.
Ancient
There's
games.
a Kickstarter for a game
Bring
called
it back.
Catch the King. There's 4 days left on that one. It's a strategy game produced and designed in France, and it's actually based on an old Scandinavian Viking game called Talf. And well, it's based on Tabletakes. There's a couple variations of this game, but essentially, and
You're not going to read the rest of those?
So this particular, Toffel, excuse me, not Talf, Toffel. Toffel was a game that was played in Scandinavia. It was played by Vikings in England as well. And the rules kind of changed over time. But what I find really interesting about it is that the rules would have been lost to us, except that in the 1700s, this German guy went to upper parts of Scandinavia where the Sami live, which are kind of like the
Yeah.
indigenous people of
Reindeer
Scandinavia.
people. They have reindeers.
Yep, which are delicious, by the way. That's a whole different story. So Toffel, and he learned the rules of this game from them and wrote them down, and those are the only surviving rules of that particular variant of Toffel. So
wow.
Catch the King.
It's like the Schindler of game design.
The Catch the King is going to be based on this, and essentially here's the premise of the game. Let me pitch it to you, Christian.
Okay.
It is a game similar to chess, where there's a board. You control an army, and the other player controls an army.
Like chess.
And your army has a king at the middle, and they're being essentially besieged on all sides, and it is your goal to get the king to safety by getting him off the board.
Oh, so it's the opposite of chess.
Yeah.
You're not trying to kill the other king.
Right.
Yeah,
You're
well,
trying to
only
get
one
your-
person has a king.
Only
right?
one person has a
and
king.
you're surrounded.
You're trying to get your king out alive, and the other person is like surrounding them. And there's all these different variations of the way that the opposing army can set up around the king. Some of it's fully surrounded. Some of it's like chess, like face to face. But essentially, the goal is it's asymmetric, and essentially the goal is you're trying to escape the board with your king, with and you have a certain number of warriors. And what's fun is that certain variations give you less or more pieces protecting the king. So it's kind of interesting. So
Good to be the king.
yeah, well, not in this one.
Fun, interesting thing
Well,
I say.
everyone's trying to make you survive.
Or
so.
kill you.
The
Or
fun,
kill you.
fun thing about this game that I found out, because I do a little woodworking on the side, the reason why this didn't come out as popular as like a chess, for example, it's very hard to make this gosh darn game board. The ancient version of it, I was like, how is anybody going to put the time to putting this game board together? Because this is just ridiculous.
It requires some pretty heavy craftsmanship.
Yeah, it does. Gosh darn, that's what they had to do in the winter. The Scandinavians are
Well,
just
if we get a
Yeah.
oh yeah, well, okay.
Well,
If
we got
it's
10
wood-
months.
when
I'm
you
just
deal with the
gonna-
Scandinavians and woodworking, not only is it a very intricate board, but you have to put it together yourself with little pegs, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
yeah.
So anyways, Catch the King, it's
Yeah.
4 days left on that one. If you have any interest in what we were talking about with ancient games, this could be something that might be right up your alley to see sort of a modern take on an old game.
Yep.
Next up, we have a physical device.
Yeah, this is exciting,
accessory,
actually.
Game night table topper. So this is going to be 40 inches by 40 inches, I believe. It's got 5 days left. Affordable solution to hosting game night in style. Affordable and portable. So we talked a little bit about tables. You can get like a whole gaming solution, like
Right.
replace your table for thousands of dollars.
Yep.
Yeah, and we have another Kickstarter that we decided not to cover today because it was just another. It was another square table.
Yeah, not another.
And it was
gaming
great.
table.
Don't get me wrong, but when you're charging $800 for cup holders, maybe it's time to try and find something else if you don't want to go that way and spend the thousands of dollars on a gaming table. This seems like a really, really viable solution.
And I would say, like, with Geek Chic being gone, and
Yeah.
there's not as many ways to get these tables, like, if people want them, it's good to have the option. But
You
this is
still go to
something you can
Carolina
just-
Game Tables.
Yeah.
Here's what I like about the topper, bringing this back to ancient games for a second. If you still in your household live in the ancient style where you recline to eat and don't have tables and stuff
Yeah.
like that, this
Your
is the
tables cover, like,
perfect
GameStop.
solution for you to have a gaming space while still maintaining your lifestyle of no tables.
What if you don't have a table because you don't have enough room in your place for a table?
Yeah, that's
How dare you throw me under the bus publicly like this on Twitch?
Oh,
That was for me.
Take me out.
Okay, you know what?
fight.
Well, you
fight,
can just
fight.
set this up on cinder blocks.
I'm sorry
you
I did
can
that to you,
just
sir.
put it on a plywood. You can you just put it on your couch or
There's
something.
the floor.
Your
Yeah,
bed.
put it
your
on
head.
your floor. Yeah.
Oh,
Balance
so you
it,
can do
you know?
bed tabletop games.
Yeah.
I think
bet.
we can
Yeah.
probably find lots of ways to have fun with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's got 5 days left. So if you're looking for a solution, I think they really emphasize the cup holders on this one. They're like, the primary selling point for this seems to be, hey, do you not want people just to put the cup down and to get splashed all over your game? Like, we have a place for your wine, for your drinking friends.
I ruined a guy's copy of A Few Acres of Snow that way one time. It was pretty bad.
Oh,
That's like a gamer's worst nightmare.
Yeah, no, it was, yes. Wow. Yes.
You're one of those people.
I'm sorry.
shameful.
One of those people who made a mistake once and had
Yeah,
an
I
accident.
know, right?
I mean, not that has ever happened to me.
I apologize and bought him a
dare
new. I
you.
apologize and bought him a new copy. Let's.
No, I'm just saying, like, it is one of my
Yes.
personal worst
Oh,
nightmares.
absolutely.
Like, anytime and I'm clumsy too.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'll like take my water glass and put it on the floor because I'm like, I just can't eat
that's-
it.
I have enough
I-
elbows on my body for an entire game night of
Yes,
people.
yeah.
No, we joked. I just recently made a gaming table. I took my dining table and I was like, I want a gaming table, so I fixed it up. I christened
your mad
my
skills.
Table. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. But I christened the table accidentally because I was like, I need my character sheet, and I didn't realize that my drink was right on top of the little flippy bar
Yeah.
area where I put like compartments for trays, and I just flipped it all over the table. I was like, no! And I
Oh
rushed-
yeah, so you just literally flipped.
Yeah, I flipped a drink in there. It was
Your table
horrible.
flipped on your first day with the table.
Yeah, it was unfortunate.
Yeah,
It's
so
totally
if you don't
okay,
want that
though.
to happen to your game night, check
Go
out
out.
Tabletop.
There's a table. You can take your ordinary table and make it into a gaming table just
Yeah.
by setting a thing on it that
Yeah.
makes it more gaming.
Yeah,
Sounds great.
that
All
sounds
right,
great.
next up.
I think it's
also,
cool.
hey, do you want a game 6 days left that talks about making deals with the devil and then making that curse go passed on to generations and generations, having them to do stuff? Hey,
Here's
Do I?
colonialism, the game.
no, but Sins of the
no.
Father is
Next
a
episode.
game that came out last year, which you roleplay as characters that had the family member make deals with the devil, and you have to roleplay how to fix that or appease the devil. Now there's Sins of the Father's Companion. Where are
Sounds so
you?
cute.
It is. It's so cute. That
Deals
it's
with the
not-
devil that are multi-generational. That's
Yeah,
so messed up. It's like
multi-generational.
being a Kardashian, the game.
Well, I mean, so what this provides is basically a new set of rules that you can essentially do more dark deeds to get more deals with the devils.
So you're leaning into this. You're not like, oh, damn it, Dad, why did you set me up for this? You're like,
You've really messed me up. I know what I'll do.
Yeah.
The same thing.
Same thing, but then I get 2 gifts, but I have to do twice the efforts later on. And they also
Just keep
provide.
passing on the future debt, just like the economy.
But the cooler thing is that they also offer a legacy mode. So if you do compete one campaign with like appeasing this devil for a certain time, you can go ahead and next game role play your great-great-grandchildren.
nice.
Who has to deal with all the bad decisions
Yeah.
that you made?
Yeah, so over time you
Man,
could
if people could really look into the future like that, you know, I think they would make different decisions.
But yeah, it's just it's fun if you're into like hellscape, mystery, cults.
If you're a widely read Oscar Wilde fan.
Yeah. So
Sorry,
no.
that's a picture of Dorian Gray reference.
No, I got it. I got it. But I'm sad that I got it.
Okay, you could hear a pin drop in here after I said that, so I was like, uh-oh, do I have to explain the joke here?
No.
That's why you got a very long look from me. Like, I did not expect that.
See what you did there.
I did my inside laugh.
I appreciate
I was amused.
all of my jokes usually get inside.
Yeah,
No,
it's,
I dig it though. It's
Thanks,
good.
Dave.
6 days left on
6
Sins of
days
Father.
left. RPG.
All right.
Speaking of 6 days left, I just like to say that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Are you going to talk about After the Empire?
No, I'm
You
not.
claimed it now. You touched it.
All right,
Touched
okay.
it.
It's a Kickstarter board game, capital K.
Yes, capital K Kickstarter board game. We do
Yes.
at least one every week.
Yes.
Is this have your the Emma capital K Kickstarter board game of the week seal of approval?
Yes. It's
Are you
got
trying
stuff
to
in
make
it.
a K with
K?
your arms?
Yeah.
Because that's amazing.
K? Isn't this like K?
Sure. Yeah.
K.
We'll go with it.
And S.
So
don't
these
know.
are just low quality plastic minis, but there are 235 of them. Someone felt inclined to
Yeah,
put
man.
them.
If you're gonna
These
do
aren't your-
quantity or quality, and you
Yeah.
can do quantity, like go overboard.
You can do one or the other usually.
235. That's a lot of pieces.
But for the same price that you would be getting 5 for if they were super high quality.
Right.
This is and this is kind of like a tower defense thing. Is
Yes.
that the deal? So
Yeah.
that's cool.
Worker placement, tower defense, so often done in video or mobile games.
Yeah, so you
not
spend
as often
resources,
tabletop.
build up your thing, and then assign defenders, and then the other people attack.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
As you grow more powerful, so does your invader.
And whoever
Yeah, I was
has
gonna say, just like real life, the better you do, the stronger everything working against you gets.
Yep.
Yes.
and whoever has the most stuff at the end wins.
Yeah.
Most stuff.
You level up, and then things just get harder. All right, 6
After
days
the
left on
Empire.
that. Last but not least, the Hedgehog Hop, which is the actual cutest,
Hedgehog
official
Hop.
cutest Kickstarter board game of the week. Adorable hedgehogs, and they're dancing, so that's why it's called the Hedgehog Hop.
Because they're
It's
doing
like
a dance
they're
called
doing
the
a dance.
Hedgehog
I actually asked the girl
like
to
the
my
hippie
10th
shake.
grade hedgehog hop, but she
Yeah.
was like, "You're great, but not adorable," so we didn't get it yet.
We think you're adorable.
There's a cuteness there.
Yeah, so in this game, 7 days left, you lead your hedgehog dance crew to victory in the grand finale. More bump than grind. Hedgehogs are cute but clumsy. Beware.
You had
I
me
love
lead
that
your
there's
hedgehog dance crew.
You said hedgehog dance crew, and I completely lost because I'm just like picturing these guys like looking like b-boys.
yeah,
but, like,
all tracksuits, all matching tracksuits. It's
yeah,
like that.
with the
scene-
little spine sticking out the back. Though.
Wait, wasn't
you're
that
thinking
actually a
about the
commercial for
chipmunks.
something?
The soul.
Oh.
It's like the performance from Pitch Perfect, but they're all hedgehogs.
No,
love
it'd
all
have to be
these
one of the dance
things.
movies because Pitch Perfect
Oh,
is
yeah,
singing,
well,
right?
They,
Oh,
they
wait,
dance
so
too.
step it up. You
Let's
mean
be
step
clear.
Step up, there you go.
Yeah.
Little
Step up.
hedgehogs just they all roll out there in their little ball form, and then they pop up and they'll be
Yeah.
like, "Oh,
Hey!
about to bring it down."
There you go. That's your new movie.
Can we just have an hour of that, please?
Chipmunk voice.
Let's bring it down.
So none of that is what this Kickstarter is actually
tiny little
about.
arms.
If you go to this Kickstarter expecting any of these things, you will be disappointed. But there are cards, and they are doing dance formations and making friends, and it is adorable. You should check it out.
I like where different dance moves impact the direction tiles are shifted as they get placed.
Yeah.
I like the last tile left becomes the lead dancer.
Yeah.
So it's like you're the person who stands in the front of the line and everybody does the same moves you do.
Yeah.
It'd be
Yeah.
really good. I'm excited.
All right, and that's it for Kickstarters.
That is it for Kickstarters, and probably that's it for Tabletakes on this Friday. Don't forget to stick around for the new release rundown with Red Castle Games from Portland. You can catch the Fireside Chats on Wednesday with Peter and the Brothers Murph on Monday. We will see you next week, everybody. Have a great weekend. Be safe out there. Play lots of games.
All the games.
Bye-bye.
Bye.